Hello and thanks everyone for being with us, and welcome to Firstpost America. We're live in the nation's capital of Washington, D.C. And today we've got the latest news from the U.S. and around the world coming up. But first, a rundown of the top headlines of the day. The powerful sister of North Korea's leader warns the United States against pushing for denuclearization after a White House official says President Trump is open to talks with Kim Jong-un. Kazakhstan says the European Union has approved the Central Asian country to export coal through Russian ports despite sanctions on Moscow over its invasion of Ukraine. Heavy rains kill more than 30 and force evacuation of tens of thousands of people as torrential downpours lash swaths of northern China, triggering deadly landslides. Military commanders from Thailand and Cambodia hold talks after the South Asian neighbors agreed to a truce to end 5 days of fighting. And data shows Spain's economy grew faster between April and June, expanding by 0.7%, driven by a growth in exports despite trade tensions sparked by rising U.S. tariffs. We begin in New York, where a brutal mass shooting has shaken the heart of Manhattan. 4 people were killed inside a high-rise office tower at 345 Park Avenue, home to the NFL's headquarters and financial giants like Blackstone, KPMG, and JP Morgan Chase. The incident unfolded during the evening, leaving the city rattled and reigniting a fierce political debate around policing and gun control. New York City Mayor Eric Adams, himself a former NYPD officer, addressed reporters late on Monday, confirming that the gunman died after the attack.
Gun violence has scarred so many neighbors and ripped apart too many families across this entire country. And we will continue the fight to do all we can to protect our city. But tonight we mourn for those who were killed. And we pray for the families as they go through this painful moment.
The assailant, identified as 27-year-old Shane Tamura from Las Vegas, had a history of mental illness and drove across the country before arriving in New York. Surveillance footage shows him exiting a black BMW on Park Avenue before opening fire with an assault-style rifle.
According to our law enforcement partners in Las Vegas, Mr. Tamura has a documented mental health history. His motives are still under investigation, and we are working to understand why he targeted this particular location.
And as police continued their investigation, politics quickly entered the frame. Mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani, who has previously called for defunding and dismantling the police, posted a message offering prayers to the victims and support for the first responders. But the internet quickly resurfaced his past tweets, one from June 2020 stating, "No, we want to defund the police," and another claiming the NYPD was a major threat to public safety. Mamdani's campaign website now speaks of a Department of Community Safety and claims police have a critical role to play. Still, the backlash was swift, with critics calling out the apparent flip-flop. Some even accused him of politicizing the moment for damage control, while others demanded accountability for earlier rhetoric. Meanwhile, former Governor Andrew Cuomo expressed horror over the attack and praised the NYPD's rapid response. And Republican nominee Curtis Sliwa called the shooting disturbing and also praised first responders. And here on Capitol Hill, political lines have also hardened. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries from New York called the shooting tragic and horrifying, demanding decisive action on gun violence. He even described the violence as a plague and pushed for reforms. And in contrast, Republican Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana dismissed new gun control measures, saying that America needs idiot control rather than more legislation.
On Capitol Hill, probably beginning in the morning, there will be the inevitable call by some of my colleagues for more gun control laws. We got hundreds of gun control laws, maybe thousands. We don't need more gun control, we need more idiot control.
And with the NYPD, FBI, and city officials still piecing together the 27-year-old shooter's motives, one thing is certain: The fallout from this tragedy won't be limited to Park Avenue. Political careers, police funding, and public trust are now on the line, and as the investigation deepens, so too does the city's political divide. And across the pond in the UK, President Donald Trump has once again reignited his years-long feud with London Mayor Sadiq Khan. During his trip to Scotland, which concludes today, Trump criticized London's mayor, calling him a nasty person and saying he's done a terrible job. The comments came at a press conference alongside British Prime Minister Keir Starmer after the president was asked whether he would be visiting London. Take a look.
Will you visit London during the state visit? Or
I will. I'm not a fan of your mayor.
Why not?
I think he's done a terrible job, the mayor of London, but a nasty person.
The remarks prompted an immediate response from Prime Minister Starmer, who offered support for his fellow Labour Party comrade. Starmer stated that Khan was his friend, only to be countered by the president, who doubled down again on his claim that the mayor has done a terrible job. Now, the exchange marks a new chapter in the long-running feud between the U.S. president and Khan, one of Britain's most prominent Muslim politicians and a three-term mayor. In the past, during his first presidency, the twice-impeached president called Khan a stone-cold loser and very dumb. He also claimed that Khan had done a very bad job on countering terrorism in the city, while also challenging him to an IQ test. Now, on the other hand, Khan has compared the president to what he called the fascists of the 20th century. He's also spoken out against Trump's travel ban on people from certain Muslim countries. And during the president's 2018 visit to London, Khan had allegedly authorized a protest blimp that depicted Donald Trump as a crying baby in a nappy flying above Parliament. In a podcast recorded before the convicted felon's re-election in November, Khan reportedly accused the incoming president of targeting him because of the color of his skin. And in an article ahead of Donald Trump's second inauguration, Khan warned that so-called Western reactionary populists now pose a century-defining threat to progressive values.
Progressives across the Western world face a century-defining challenge, and the stakes for liberal democracy couldn't be higher. By exploiting economic concerns and a growing distrust of political and media institutions, these reactionary populists have been able to attract new supporters.
In responding to President Trump's renewed criticism, a spokesperson for the mayor said he would be pleased to welcome the president to London, but still didn't miss the chance to take a dig.
Sadiq is delighted that President Trump wants to come to the greatest city in the world. He'd see how our diversity makes U.S. stronger, not weaker, richer, not poorer. Perhaps these are the reasons why a record number of Americans have applied for British citizenship under his presidency.
President Trump is expected to make a formal state visit to the United Kingdom in September on the invitation of King Charles III. He'll be accompanied by the First Lady Melania Trump and hosted by the British royals at the Windsor Castle. The visit comes as the president has not shied away from commenting on British politics. He's praised several political figures in the country, including Prime Minister Starmer and Reform leader Nigel Farage, who has spoken at the president's election rallies both in 2020 and 2024.
I happen to like both men. I like Starmer a lot, and I like Nigel. And, I don't know the politics over here. I don't know where they stand. I would say one is slightly liberal. Not that liberal, slightly. And the other one is slightly conservative, but they're both good men.
So as President Trump prepares to return to London later this year, his remarks have already reignited a familiar feud and set the stage for what could be another controversial visit. And staying with President Donald Trump's visit to Scotland, the U.S. leader has issued another strong warning to Iran. Speaking to reporters at the Turnberry Golf Resort on Monday, the president said that earlier U.S. strikes had wiped out Iran's nuclear capabilities. He then went on to warn that any attempt by Tehran to resume its nuclear program would be met with a much swifter response.
Imagine the beating they took. We wiped out their nuclear possibilities. They can start again. If they do, we'll wipe it out faster than you can wave your finger at it. We'll have to do that. We will do that gladly, openly and gladly.
The president also accused Tehran of sending disturbing and nasty signals in the wake of the strikes and warned that it should refrain from doing so.
They've been saying, Iran's been sending out bad signals, I'll tell you. For a country that just got wiped out, they've been sending very bad signals, very nasty signals. And they shouldn't be doing that. They shouldn't be doing that.
The comments come as Iran continues to defend its right to enrich uranium despite airstrikes in June on 3 of its nuclear facilities, Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. Washington now has said the targets were part of a program aimed at disrupting Iran's ability to develop a nuclear weapon, an accusation Tehran has repeatedly denied. And over the weekend, President Trump reportedly called Iran's persistence in pursuing its nuclear program stupid. In response to President Trump's threats, Iran's foreign minister warned that any further strikes by the United States or Israel would be met with a stronger, more decisive reaction.
Iran knows exactly what happened during the recent American-Israeli aggression, both to us and our adversaries, including the extent of blows that are still being censored. If aggression is repeated, we will not hesitate to react in a more decisive manner and in a way that will be impossible to cover up.
Foreign Minister Araghchi also defended Iran's nuclear work, calling it the result of years of investment in peaceful technology, and once again warned against foreign pressure to abandon it.
The recent unlawful bombing of Iranian nuclear facilities has proven what we have always stated: there is no military solution. If there are concerns about the possible diversion of our nuclear program into non-peaceful purposes, the military option proved incapable, but a negotiated solution may work.
Now, to be clear, the actual extent of damage from the U.S. strikes on Iran remains unknown. America's attacks followed an earlier offensive by Israel, which claimed its goal was to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear bomb. In the subsequent days of the strike, the U.S. claimed it had decimated and completely obliterated Iran's nuclear sites. And over the course of the 12-day war last month, Iran also responded with missile attacks on Israeli cities, as well as one on a nearby U.S. base in Qatar. But it must be noted that Israel's attacks, which killed top commanders and nuclear scientists, has derailed U.S.-Iran nuclear negotiations that began back in April. Since the end of the conflict, the U.S. and Iran have not held any talks on Tehran's nuclear program. However, Iran has maintained contact with Britain, France, and Germany, the European signatories to the 2015 nuclear deal. Collectively known as the E3, the three nations have threatened to invoke the snapback mechanism to reinstate UN sanctions if Iran fails to comply. The deadline to do so is October, and Tehran has warned there will be consequences if they in fact follow through. Now, to put this into some perspective, even before the recent escalation, the U.S. and Iran were locked in a dispute over uranium enrichment. Tehran insists it has a sovereign right to enrich uranium, while Washington has repeatedly called it a red line. The International Atomic Energy Agency has noted that Iran is currently the only non-nuclear state enriching uranium to 60% shy of the 90% required for a bomb. So as both sides double down on their positions, the question remains, will diplomacy prevail, or will it see a further escalation in the region? And staying in the Middle East, tensions in the Red Sea have escalated dramatically as Yemen's Iran-backed Houthis released video footage of crew members of the Eternity Sea cargo ship, which they sank earlier this month. The footage shows the captured crew, reportedly Filipino, apologizing to Palestinians on camera. The Houthis claim to have rescued 11 crew members, though EU forces report many are still missing. This attack follows the sinking of another vessel in the Red Sea as the Houthis intensify threats to strike any ship linked to Israeli ports. Here's the story with more.
In the murky waters of the Red Sea, where ancient trade routes once brought silk and spice, modern chaos now surges. Off Yemen's war-scarred coast, a dangerous new front continues to unfold, not on land, but at sea. And at its center are the Iran-backed Houthi rebels. Earlier this month, the Eternity Sea, a Liberia-flagged cargo ship, vanished beneath the waves. And now, weeks later, the Houthis have surfaced with a grim revelation and a chilling video. Released by their media center, the footage claims to show 11 rescued crew members, mostly Filipino, who had disappeared after the attack. Wearing life jackets, dazed and wet, the men are seen being pulled from the sea.
They give all our needed. They taking care of us. What we need, they give us all. I'm very thankful to all the authority here because they taking care of us.
When asked about their message to the companies that sail their ships to Israel, a crew member warned to stop trading and transactions immediately.
To the owner or company, please stop your trading or any transaction to Israeli because Red Sea is safe. But if you have any transaction or trading to the Israel, you will get any problem.
Then at the end, the rescued crew turned to the camera and said in unison, "We are sorry, Palestinians."
We are sorry, Palestinians.
Now the Eternity Sea did not go down alone. On the 6th of July, the Magic Seas, a Greek-operated vessel, met a similar fate. Earlier this month, the Houthis even released a video showing what they said was the strike and the sinking of the Magic Seas, following an alleged exchange with the captain.
You have to decrease the speed of the ship and stop the ship immediately to check security action for your ship safety and crew safety. Stop the ship immediately.
The ship's 22 crew members were rescued by a passing merchant vessel and were brought safely to Djibouti. But the Houthis' message was clear. The Red Sea was no longer safe. The Houthis claimed these attacks are acts of solidarity with Palestinians, part of what they have now declared the fourth phase of their military operations.
The Yemeni armed forces, relying on Allah Almighty and trusting in Allah, have decided to escalate their military support operations and begin implementing the fourth phase of the naval blockade against the enemy. This phase includes targeting all ships belonging to any company that deals with the ports of the Israeli enemy, regardless of the nationality of that company, and in any location within the reach of our armed forces.
Since the war in Gaza broke out, the Houthis have launched an astonishing wave of attacks on maritime traffic. Over 100 merchant ships targeted, 4 vessels sunk, 1 hijacked, and at least 8 sailors dead. The once bustling Red Sea has become a high-risk zone, and cargo ships now reroute around Africa's Cape of Good Hope, adding weeks of delay and millions in cost. Now, even though the Houthis claim of a rescue, the EU says 15 crew members of the Eternity Sea remain missing, with at least 4 presumed dead. Philippine officials said on Tuesday that it would ask friendly countries to help secure the release of 9 Filipino sailors. On the other hand, international outcry has been swift. The Human Rights Watch has condemned the attacks as war crimes. The United States has accused the Houthis of kidnapping the Eternity Sea crew, warning that this latest escalation threatens global trade and civilian lives. Yet, the Houthis remain defiant, buoyed by their anti-Israel rhetoric and determination to blockade what they call enemy ports. As the Red Sea grows darker, littered with wreckage and tension, one thing is certain. These are not just attacks on ships. They are attacks on the fragile threads of global peace.
And finally, American Eagle's new denim campaign with Euphoria star Sydney Sweeney is causing quite the stir. What was meant to be a cheeky play on great jeans has taken a dark turn, with critics accusing the brand of slipping into Nazi propaganda territory. What started as a pun may now be morphing into the language of eugenics. So is it just bad branding, or is American Eagle flirting with fascist fashion? Here's what went down.
American Eagle's fall denim campaign starring actor Sydney Sweeney has quickly gone from playful to politically charged as critics accuse the brand of leaning into racially insensitive messaging. At the center of the controversy is the tagline, "Sydney Sweeney has great genes," a cheeky pun on great jeans. In one promotional clip that's racked up over 1 million views on American Eagle's Instagram page, Sweeney is seen standing in front of a poster that initially reads, "Sydney Sweeney has great genes." The word jeans is then dramatically crossed out and replaced with jeans. The campaign that tried to blend self-aware humor with a fashion-forward message hasn't landed well with everyone. Another video where Sweeney discusses genetic traits like eye color, with the camera zooming in on her blue eyes, has sparked a wave of criticism online. Some users have gone as far as accusing the campaign of promoting eugenics, white supremacy, and what they call Nazi-coded language. Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. Sweeney says in the video before quipping, "My genes are blue."
My genes are blue.
Critics argue that the reference to great genes, especially when paired with the actor's physical traits like fair skin, blonde hair, and blue eyes, taps into a loaded history. The phrase has historically appeared in eugenicist rhetoric and has long been associated with ideals of genetic superiority and beauty standards, often coded as white, thin, and Eurocentric. Some users also called out the lack of diversity in the campaign visuals, suggesting the brand had missed the mark by centering its messaging on a narrow idea of beauty. Others questioned whether American Eagle fully considered the social implications of reviving a phrase historically tied to problematic ideologies. Neither American Eagle nor Sydney Sweeney have publicly responded to the backlash. Despite the controversy, the campaign continues to roll out. According to the company, 100% of proceeds from the jeans will go to the crisis text line. It's a non-profit offering free 24/7 mental health support. Now, this isn't Sweeney's first brush with controversy tied to branding. Earlier this year, she launched a soap bar called Bathwater Bliss. The soap reportedly included actual bathwater used by the actor. The limited run of 5,000 bars reportedly sold out within minutes. While Sydney Sweeney's marketing power is undeniable, her recent campaigns raise a broader question. When does edgy turn into tone deaf? As brands continue to bank on celebrity appeal, the line between clever and controversial seems thinner than ever.
That's our show for today. We certainly thank all of you for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you once again tomorrow. Thanks everyone for watching.